Thank you. I'm really excited and honored to be here with all of you. A lot of the people in this room have been mentors to me for a long time, and I look up to you. You're my role models. And yeah, it just feels really special to now be in a space where I'm, like recognized here with you as well. And I'm also glad to be in this speaking spot so I can reflect a little bit on previous talks in the weekend as well. So I want to start with a very brief introduction. My name's Elise. I use they or she pronouns, still figuring out the balance between the gender I was taught to be and what resonates with me and where the difference lies. Just a connection with all of you who are also still figuring that out. I work as a movement building fellow with Students for Sensible Drug Policy, which I know we've mentioned a couple times this weekend and have quite a few SSDPers here as well. Can I just get a show of hands for the couple folks who are SSDPers? Yeah, oh, I didn't know that. I just want to talk a little bit about how I first got involved with WVC. It leads into my thoughts on intergenerational wisdom and honoring that as well. So when I was part of my SSDP chapter at Kent State in Ohio, I found out about this Women and Entheogens conference that was being hosted in Cleveland, where I got to meet a few of the rock stars who are here today. I grew up near Youngstown, Ohio, and it just gave me life to hear Sophia talk yesterday about Youngstown and Mill Creek Park, where I had a lot of my a lot of fond memories, but also many of my first psychedelic experiences there as well. It's a very special place in my heart to me. Just thinking about the Women and Entheogens conference in Cleveland and what a special space that was for me. I first want to call Kai Wingo in here today. She passed very unexpectedly shortly after the conference, and I'm really glad that I got the chance to connect with her there and to learn some of her wisdom, and I know that she's here with us today, so just taking a minute to honor her spirit in this place and how proud she would be of all of us here. One of the reasons why that conference was so special was, to me, because it was my first introduction into a professional kind of psychedelic space. My conversations with friends were nothing near comparable to the kind of content that was there. And also I was shocked there to see the community of people who were there. So it was mostly organized by WVC sponsored, and it was organized by this community of Black women psychedelic healers, mostly from the Cleveland area, which was surprising to me because those voices aren't amplified in a lot of psychedelic spaces. And it was just very special to have that as my introduction to these spaces, and it's given me high standards for those voices to be represented and honored at future events that I've been to. I was asked to do some kind of candid reflections on the weekend. I took notes because I'm a nervous public speaker, but I hear when you name things, they kind of go away. So, and I feel safe with all of you. So I, and as is SSDP, and as are many of us in this room, am in the business of ending drug criminalization in its entirety, and in a way that, thank you, in a way that works for all of us and doesn't leave anyone behind. And that's one thing that young people are doing really well, centering the voices of those who are most marginalized, and thinking about accessibility, thinking of who our efforts could be leaving behind. And that's great, and we should trust that, because when you center the people who are most harmed by our awful drug policies, there's a ripple effect that benefits all of us, rather than, working to benefit the most privileged of us and hoping that it'll lead to benefiting all of us. I think centering the people who are, most marginalized is the way to go with this. Yeah, thank you. I'm glad we have a lot of agreement on that there. Yeah, I'm concerned about the trend of psychedelic plant decriminalization. I know a lot of you in this room worked on the DNO initiative, and I want to first start by saying I'm really proud of you and all of the work that you've done, and it's fucking awesome that we made that happen. My concern is stemming from there's already, there's a stigma with all drug use, but there's especially a stigma between what are considered hard drugs versus soft drugs, which the distinction really doesn't make sense at all. And of course, the natural versus unnatural. I mean, heroin is derived from plants. Thank you. Cocaine derived from plants. During Christine's talk yesterday, she mentioned feeling pushed out by the CBD-only activists, and she used the phrase fracturing a movement, and I felt that really deeply about psychedelic decriminalization, to be honest. The way that that for patients, CBD-only bills push out those who benefit from THC and other compounds inside of cannabis. Psychedelic decrim pushes out people who are criminalized for other drugs, who are the people who are suffering most from drug criminalization. I took a piece from our executive director, Betty Aldworth, along with Ismail Ali, who spoke on Friday, who was our chair of the board of directors, made a policy brief around this, and I just stole a quote from that I really liked. A long-term strategy which seeks to reform the legal status of single drugs will inevitably leave behind those who are most highly stigmatized, most frequently targeted, and highest risk. The strategy is built on a set of social, economic, and racial advantages which capitalize on the privilege of the proponents and perceived users of such substances to create a sense of hierarchy among people who use drugs. And even though I know a lot of the organizers with DNO and in Denver are fully aware of all of this, a lot of our supporters will use that kind of hierarchy. We hear it a lot. We who use these good plant medicines are just in the business of healing ourselves and are connecting with Mother Earth, unlike the people who are using these bad drugs and causing problems and doing these bad things. And I'm concerned about it furthering that stigma. Yeah, thank you. But yeah, and I'm not, in criticizing this, I'm not doing that to call people out or to say that you've done a bad thing. Like I said, I think it's awesome, the work that's gone into that, and I hope that future efforts are more comprehensive and center people who have been most hurt by drug criminalization. In one of the quotes about the DNO initiative, the Alameda County Sheriff's Department, someone from there was quoted saying that there are about 12 arrests for the type of drugs that initiative covered per year in all of Alameda County. And just thinking about the number of people who are suffering because of more highly stigmatized drug use. I just hope in future initiatives that they're included. And yeah, I'm super down to work on anything like that. I know a few of us were talking about Berkeley being the city that's next, and I hope Berkeley is the city that's next for decriminalizing all drugs. But yeah, I wanted to say something about when providing criticism, And going to borrow a quote that my friend Oriana said a couple weekends ago, perhaps. I'm critical of you because I love you, and because I fuck with you, and because like we're all on the same team here. And if that weren't the case, then I wouldn't provide the criticism. I would just like work separately and not engage. But like, I do love every single person in this room and in this movement, and I am optimistic about us doing a good job of including, centering those who are like most hurt by drug criminalization in the future. Yeah. And like I said, this is something that young people are really great at doing. So as a movement building fellow with SSDP, I talk to a lot of our young people in our network, some high school students who come into this movement. Like I didn't have anywhere near the knowledge that they had coming into these spaces. I'll talk more about that in a bit. On the topic of intergenerational wisdom, which is what part of the title of my talk here, I know a lot of us in this room already honor our ancestral wisdom and call upon, our ancestors to guide us through life. Look to the wisdom of our elders. That's something that is a spirit that's very alive in this room. But I want to talk a little bit about trusting youth wisdom as well, and provide an argument for youth holding a special kind of wisdom that's often really disrespected. So for the more logically minded of us, the argument would go something like, young people grow up in a world that's shaped by our wisdom and the wisdom of everyone who's come before us. We are creating a more compassionate world, where the kinds of things that, the kinds of beliefs that it would be justifiable for our parents to have grown up with, young people today, it would be unthinkable for them to have similar beliefs. And that's because we're building a more compassionate and more understanding world, and I truly believe that. But so we're raised with that wisdom and get to integrate that into our lives and in our beliefs. So young people, coming from a space where all of that wisdom is present, they get to, integrate that into their beliefs, and all of that is present when they're sharing their ideas. For those of us who believe in past lives, so I recently took a course on evolutionary astrology. Stops for evolutionary astrology. And one of the things we discussed there was the idea of past lives and how we choose to come into existence in this realm, when we do and where we do. And each of our lives kind of demands that we build on what we needed in those past lives and integrate those experiences. So if that's something that you hold in your beliefs, young people are coming off integrating their past life and are much closer to the urgent messages, have these urgent messages for us that they've understood through their past lives. The urgency to listen to young people and hear what they have to say, I think, is also a way to honor our ancestors, because they're coming back through this space. Young people are often disrespected and thoughts are denounced because older people assume that we're starting from nothing, and we're not. We're starting with that wisdom of our elders that shaped the world that we came into. We're starting with the knowledge that we're bringing with us through past lives. And one of the things that we're starting without is all of the conditioning that we here are working to untangle in ourselves, which puts young people at a really great advantage for being able to communicate their truths. I'm fortunate to have many mentors within drug policy reform spaces, but young people don't have enough. It's hard for us to trust older people when, Our teachers and parents have shut us down and given us our shadows that Anne talked about yesterday. But that's one of the reasons why it's so special to have spaces like this that are so intergenerational and like give us that kind of access to mentors who get it and support us. So I want to talk a little bit about Students for Sensible Drug Policy, which is the organization that I work for, mentioned a little bit earlier. We have a 21-year now record of building eager student activists into service providers and drug policy reform movement leaders, a few of them in this room right now. And we do that through 3 pathways, kind of education, advocacy, and movement building. I'll talk a little bit more about education in a bit, but one of the things that we have is a Just Say No, spelled K-N-O-W, peer education training program. So our students provide peer-delivered and harm reduction-based education. A lot of us were raised with the DARE program and told not to do drugs. We're given like blatant lies about the effects of drugs. And this is our way of reclaiming drug education in a way that keeps us safe and prioritizes our safety. I initially got involved with SSDP because in high school I wanted to be a therapist, and I wrote a research paper about the use of psychedelics in therapy. And like through that research found out about Students for Sensible Drug Policy and was told by a couple people who I had reached out to that that was the organization to get involved with if I wanted to move forward with that. Through my involvement with SSDP at Kent State University, I learned more about the injustices of the war on drugs and feel more called toward advocacy and doing work around policy change and righting the wrongs that drug criminalization has done. I served for a bit on our student-led board of directors. We have at the very top of our organization, students leading us, which is really great to have that kind of youth-centered voice all the way from our board of directors down to those who are just joining the network and who we're serving. So talking about youth's wisdom and intergenerational wisdom, I want to connect that to things that we can do to support young people. And I know I titled this like investing in intergenerational wisdom. So one of the ways that you can invest in intergenerational wisdom is by taking on a mentor. Or taking on a mentee, becoming a mentor. If you don't know any young people and you aren't actively like bringing young people into these kinds of spaces, other professional spaces, come talk to me, and I'd be happy to help plug you in with some young people who I'm sure would love to be pulled into your world. Even just posting about this conference, a lot of my students from the East Coast were expressing how cool this is and how excited they are to be brought into these kinds of spaces. And something else that we're working on right now, which is a really exciting measure, and forgive me, I'll just read off my screen for this. We are currently developing a pipeline to prepare SSDP members to become psychedelic therapists, integration coaches, and support personnel. There's currently no formal pipeline to recruit these professionals, and those who are interested have few options to receive training and mentorship. A broad network of practitioners will soon be required to meet the anticipated demand for psychedelic-assisted therapy. We're especially concerned that there won't be enough therapists of color who can work to heal the trauma of racism that people of color face on a daily basis, much of which is interconnected with the war on drugs. This pipeline will include scholarship funds, pre-training resources, and connection to mentors for all SSDP members, and will include outsized investment in recruiting people of color as well. So that's a project that we're very excited to be launching. Yeah, thank you. The person who is heading the project is our Director of Drug Education, Dr. Maree Fraguada Narloch. Yeah, she's certified through the CIAS Psychedelic Training and Research Program, and is also the main person who developed and currently runs our Just Say KNOW peer education program. Yeah, and feel really great about that being in her hands. But if you know, I know we have a lot of people in this room who are involved with psychedelic research, are involved with psychedelic therapy, and yeah, we would love to have you as a resource to connect our students to. We're still very much developing this program and seeing how exactly it'll work. So I know we're expecting to spend $45K on personnel and travel expenses for this pipeline in 2020. And any additional money that we raise on top of that will support production of a video series, lectures, educational and recruitment materials, and a public relations campaign to raise awareness of these programs. Many of the students who I work with currently are very interested in going into psychedelic research, and I'm very excited to be creating the space for them, pathway for them to make that happen. And yeah, so if you know you're someone who can't provide the kind of mentorship, but could provide funding to help that happen, come talk to me afterwards. Would love to help us make that a reality. And yeah, if art is more your jam, we're also developing a large-scale art project that has the potential to push conversations about drug legalization forward in a dramatic way. It's still very much in process, so I can't talk about it, up on stage here. But if anyone's interested in helping us make that a reality, come talk with me as well. It'll be an immersive art experience. But yeah, I just want to leave you with one more ask as far as investing in intergenerational wisdom. While you're taking on mentees, while you're bringing young people into these spaces, also try to think of them as your mentors too. You know, there are a lot of things that we can learn from younger people. There are a lot of things that I, as a 23-year-old, am learning when I'm talking to high schoolers on the phone about getting involved with SSDP, and them coming to me already with a greater understanding of of intersectionality, of the effects of the war on drugs and all of the places that it reaches. Yeah, so just want to leave you with an ask to think of young people as your mentors, and trust their words and uplift their voices as well. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. And we have some time for questions as well. So if anyone has questions about anything that I've said, or students, or young people, or drug decriminalization, or my thoughts on any of that. Woo.
Hey, thank you for... there we are. Thank you for your talk, and thank you for your dedication to this. I do a bit of fundraising, and I'm wondering if you guys have seen a specific fundraising tactic that's been most effective. I'm really seeing a lot of success in empowering large groups of people to make donations in small amounts to create projects, but I'm wondering if you guys have a model that you've seen be most successful.
Thank you for that. I am luckily not deeply involved in our fundraising. I'm more on our movement building and advocacy side of things. I work directly with students, so I don't talk as much to our larger donors. I know that most of our fundraising, or most of our funding comes through small donations. But for larger projects like this, of course, and trying to roll them out in a short period of time, those larger donations are helpful. Yeah, I actually don't have much advice for fundraising. One of the best pieces of advice that I've learned, though, is to make the ask and then shut up. I know a lot of us have the tendency to, continue talking afterwards, to say, like, I need $20,000 to make this happen, but I understand if you can't do that right now, or, and if that doesn't work out, like, there are other ways that you can help. But if your goal is to like make an ask, like once you make the ask, yeah, leave that space. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Elise, thanks for your talk. I was wondering if you have any specific advice for choosing a mentor-mentee, any kind of best practices or how to approach growing that relationship in a way that feels great for both people.
Sure, thank you for that. It's different for everyone. I know we have like a official mentorship program within SSDP where we connect young people to alumni and some like trusted other folks who were not ever like personally members of SSDP. And a lot of them, it depends on where you get your best support. So some of them, what matters most is having someone nearby who they can check in with in person, and who they can, shadow around at events. I think I'm more interested for myself, like a mentor would be someone who is engaged in similar work that I do, or at a higher level of professional development in a certain field that I'm interested in. But yeah, it's very personal, what people prefer and what works best for them. So I think it was like there are people who hold power in these kind of like psychedelic research spaces, and if it gets to a point where we can't work with those people, do we have another plan for doing that? Okay. Yeah, so that's something that we're cautious of, and I know Maree is cautious of. There are certainly people who hold power in these spaces who should not. Who abuse that power, and who, like, a lot of people have raised awareness around their abuse of that power. I'm not concerned with Maree leading this. I'm not concerned that we would be working with any of those people and connecting our students with any of those people. And part of the question was if there are too many bad people in power and we can't connect with them, do we have a like backup plan? We're taking over. We're we're the young people and the future of psychedelic research and psychedelic therapy, and we're taking over. So the plan after all of our like good mentors are gone is that like we're in charge and we're being better.